Hello and welcome to the Earth Observed podcast. My name is Sam and I oversee geospatial data, Earth data and atmospheric AI staffing here at DeepRec.ai, part of Trinovo Group. Today, we have another episode of Earth Observed, a podcast where I sit down with the founders, the technical leaders, and the minds shaping the future of Earth data, geospatial technology, and atmospheric AI across Europe, North America, and beyond. In each episode, we take a vertical dive into a topic chosen by our guest, giving you a front row seat to the ideas, the tools, and the challenges that enable innovation from space to subsurface and everything in between. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Kevin Bullock, Head of Partnerships at Development Seed. To introduce Kevin, Kevin has previously spent much of his career in remote sensing with a long tenure at Maxar, where he held roles across engineering, product management, and business development before moving into his current role at Development Seed. Kevin, how are you?
Great. I live next to an Air Force base, and literally a jet, F-35 or F-22 is taking off right now.
I heard.
So you heard? Okay.
It sounded. I had a feeling that was that, but I wanted you to validate that, and
Yes.
that was pretty awesome. So if they could just like rewind that and do that again, that'd be pretty cool.
Yes. He or she is circling overhead, so they take off. This usually only happens on the weekends. I don't think I can ever remember it happening during the week. Usually it's a training exercise.
Yeah.
But I think that was literally like an afterburner noise, but I think they've gone away. So apologies for that, and what a fun way to start things off.
How dare they interrupt our recording? Yes. Honestly, I don't. Yes. How do they not know? It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's cool. But as I said, look, awesome to have you here, and of course, the jets in the background featuring. Awesome to have them as well. How are you today?
Great. I guess it's a symbol of the United States of America and our military pride to have like a jet fly over for your podcast. So
very fitting yes. Indeed. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, apart from the jets scrambling there, what's going on in your world at this moment in time? Let's have a brief catch up. Everything all good on your end?
Yeah. Couldn't be happier with the things we're working on at Development Seed. Last week, I know this will be released in a few weeks, but last week I was in New York for Climate Week with about 2 million other people, it seemed like. But the energy was great. Everyone there was passionate and working towards a common cause. So I was thrilled to be part of that, and the energy was great. And so I came home super motivated. But yeah, things are going very well, and we're working on a lot of super interesting things right now. So I couldn't be more excited.
Well, look, today, from what I understand, we're going to be talking about reducing friction between Earth observation providers and the end users, but I don't necessarily just want to talk about that. It'd be great to get some of your learnings from Climate Week. Yeah, no, really, really excited to have you on. And as well, I think it's pretty well known, my kind of appreciation for Development Seed. I've spoken very publicly on LinkedIn about the work that you guys are doing over there. I see you in really high regard. You're well respected, so I'm sure there's a lot of people viewing this today who are really looking forward to seeing what you've got to say and what's going on there. I guess let's start off with the topic in hand here and kind of trying to tie that to Development Seed there if possible. So reducing friction between Earth observation providers and end users. Before I jump into any questions there, well, why don't you shed some light for the audience on, I guess, what is somewhat meant by that?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that setup. And it's kind of one of the reasons why Development Seed exists. And Ian, our CEO, he articulates this far better than I, but we see, and this is us at Development Seed, and actually this was a topic last week as well. I was on a panel and we talked about this exact same thing. Not the exact same thing. It was more in relation to risk and climate, so that we can talk in more generalities. The point is, this is a recurring theme that people are talking about, and there's good reason. We at Development Seed, we see this massive potential of Earth observation data. Earth observation data, as you know, Sam, is massive. Like the Earth is big, therefore, if you're collecting global data sets, they are big also. We also have an amazing number of satellites up in space that are collecting imagery, hyperspectral imagery, multispectral imagery, thermal imagery, synthetic aperture radar, also satellites that are collecting weather data, both commercial and government. So we're collecting massive amounts of data about our planet. We were trying to quantify it at Development Seed. It's kind of hard to do, but we kind of came up with an estimate that about every single day, half of a petabyte of data is collected by these various sensors. So 500 terabytes per day of data collected about the Earth. And I think it's safe to say that no organization, no person, no entity is analyzing all 500 terabytes per day, just because of the sheer amount of resources that are needed to do that. So think about that much data being collected. These satellites they're always on. They're always collecting. They don't sleep. They don't take days off. So we see this massive potential in not only the data being collected on a daily basis, but historical archives. So if you can read historical data and analyze it quickly and look for patterns, it really enables so many different applications and use cases in Earth observation. And the whole thing we see is like there's a huge gap between that potential value and what's actually being extracted.
Right.
So
Okay.
like the main work we do at Development Seed is we build open source tools, pipelines, platforms, software, front ends, back ends, UIs to help our customers, our partners extract that value. Like that's our main competency at DevSeed is sort of bridging that gap
Yeah.
between that valuable data set and actually deriving answers that help solve important global problems.
Yeah. I like
So
that.
yeah, and one thing I'll add to it is there's both a technical challenge and a business challenge.
Okay.
They're both like, and Sean Gorman from Zephyr actually just wrote a post on this. It's really good. You can have the best technology in the world, but if the business and licensing model don't align with that technology, it's probably not going to work. So you need both technology advancements and you need, in my opinion, different perspectives on the business model, meaning how is it going to financially make sense for the end users, for the for the entities that are collecting the source data. Both of those have to come together. So that's kind of like my role at Development Seed, is to match those up.
I like that. I like the fact that your role resembles ultimately what Development Seed is, in what I see anyway, in that Development Seed between the EO provider and the end user is the conduit, the catalyst, the connector. And I like how you somewhat symbolize that in the role that you play within the business.
Great.
Would you
Thank you.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I totally agree. And it requires creativity. The awesome thing about Development Seed is we are a bunch of creators at our core.
Love that. Yeah.
And we're building these tools. It seems like everyone at Development Seed has passion projects that they're working on as well. And we bring that into our business decisions as well. So we do creative things with our partners. We want them to succeed. And so we enable them both with technology and with unique partnership arrangements. So it's unlike anything I've ever experienced before. One thing that always blows people away is, and actually going back to your introduction about Development Seed, we don't market. We have no marketing team. We have no sales representatives. So no sales, no marketing, no ads. We get our message out through communications, through comms, through our blog posts and our website and our social media presence. Like, that's how people find out about us. That's how, like, for the listeners, you don't need to listen to me. Just go to our blog. When we do a cool project with a partner, we blog about it. So that's like the main source of how we communicate to the world. And because we're building an open source, most of our projects are on GitHub. We have, I think, over 600 public repositories. Some are heavily used. These libraries of open software, heavily used by organizations all over the world, and they're free. So we, that's how a lot of people find us. Is they find a piece of code on GitHub, and then they see one of our developers as the maintainer, and they reach out.
Yeah.
So
Do you
it's
know
really
what?
unique. Yeah.
I've been speaking to a fair few people in both recording episodes for Earth Observed and also candidates, clients alike as well. And some of the problems or some of the kind of solutions that they are trying to build is how can we make data widely accessible? And I think that's one way in doing that. So that's fantastic. I also have a lot of hiring managers and business owners coming to me and saying, look, we want to hire said engineer, but we would love to see examples of said engineers work on places like GitHub, in places like Google Scholar, in terms of publications, for example. So, I do believe that this is a new way of communicating competency and I guess the way in which companies do things is through places like GitHub. So I think that's fantastic.
My just to key off that, sorry.
Yeah,
My
please.
recommendation, like when we look at potential candidates at DevSeed, the first thing we look at is their GitHub page. And some people, and my recommendation, if you're an engineer who's looking for a job, build out your GitHub page, build out your profile page.
I second that.
I've seen some people that have done it so well, and it's like their resume, or their CV. Instead of looking at a PDF, you can actually go to their page and look at their projects, look at their code. It's amazing. So that to me is the future, especially for like software development. And it's not even the future because so many people have been doing this for the past decade. But yeah, it's amazing to see that ecosystem of engineers growing, and GitHub being a place to showcase your projects and your talents.
Absolutely. During my time, don't get me wrong, you can't beat a traditional resume. I think that will definitely stand the test of time. But I will say that those candidates who have said, look, my resume is either my LinkedIn profile or my GitHub, I'd say the majority of those candidates have gone on to land jobs or job offers, or if not, at least get to the final stage in interview
That's awesome.
processes. So 100% would second that. And I think it's, as you say, it's not even the future. I think it's today. It's how people are doing things. People are moving quickly, and people don't necessarily have the time to build resumes, but it's because they've been building like a lasting resume in the form of GitHub. So really, really interesting topic there. So We have got large scale data sets. We have got climate change. We have got loads of different types of satellite imagery in all different forms. We've got licensing challenges. My first question to you is, what is the one real world problem? Actually, I tell you what, before I jump into that question, there's a quote. There's a quote that I read yesterday, and it goes like this: "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it is to act with yesterday's logic." I'm going to say that one more
Okay.
time. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence; it is to act with yesterday's logic. And it was wrote by a guy called Peter Drucker. Now, I guess following on from that quote, I have a question. What's the one real world problem that keeps you up at night? The challenge you'd dedicate yourself to solving above all else. And look, you can tie this to today's topic, reducing friction between Earth observation providers and end users. You can tie this to your own personal interests and projects and work, or you can tie this to development seed. Please answer that in the most sandbox way you wish.
Okay. That's a great question. I think I know the answer.
Please,
um,
there's no wrong
yeah,
answers.
I had this, and I think it was traveling back from Climate Week. It was probably on the plane. And I had this sort of vision in my head. Um, it was last Friday. And it was hot in New York City. Let me tell you, it was hot and humid. I live in Arizona, as you can see. I came back to Arizona and it felt cool and crisp. So New York was hot and muggy. I came home uh, to an absolute monsoon of a storm here in Arizona that was the worst one we've had in about a decade. Shut down streets. Four people were killed in flash floods in Arizona. And I just had this vision of, and if you look at just the last 12 months of weather events around the world, flooding in the Himalayas, horrific fires. We had one of the most tragic flash flooding events here on July 4th in Texas that claimed over 130 people. Um, the earth is changing and it's getting violent. And going back to my initial comments, we are collecting a massive amount of data and making measurements. Like, these satellite images, they're not just pretty pictures, they're measurements. It's measuring the spectral signature, measuring the dimensions of the earth. So we have all of this high quality data. A lot of it is not open. Some of the data are open, and these are the data sets that are widely used in academia, in white papers, in research. Most of that data is closed. So when I talked about the half of a petabyte being collected, 500 terabytes, probably 450 of those terabytes per day are locked behind licensing and stored as commercial data set. And there's reasons for that. These companies have a profit motive. They're selling access to that data. But I just keep thinking about, like, what if all of that data was open? And also, what if we destroy the earth? What if the earth burns and floods and we destroy the earth, and it's the last day of Earth's existence, and these commercial providers of Earth observation data are sitting on their archives saying, well, at least we got our 10% margin last quarter, and we kill the Earth. So it's like, it's kind of a morbid thing, but
No, it makes sense.
but there's so much value in those data sets. And if we can get it into the hands of people who are working on applications, working on science, working on solutions, it could be a massive game changer. And this is the point I was talking. We were having these conversations last week. It's not a technological problem. It's a licensing problem. They want to license their data and restrict it, and profit off it. So I posed a scenario of like, okay, well, what if we have all these billionaires, apparently there's hundreds of them, um, and you could, single someone out like Jeff Bezos. What if Jeff Bezos just decided to personally buy an Earth observation satellite provider, or buy them all and make the data completely free and open? Um, the billionaire would have to spend a couple of their billions to do that. But what a game changer it would be for research, for science, for planet Earth, for all of us. Um, so like, it's completely flipping this model. So that's the thing that it keeps me up at night, is like, we have so much data about our planet that's just not available to general population because
Yeah.
of lawyers. Lawyers control the vaults of Earth observation data right now.
It's
And that
like
can change.
it's like I would be very interested to know if there, or I'd be interested to see if there was a correlation between, and once again, apologies for being morbid here, but we have to speak very plainly to try and get my point across. It'd be interested to see the amount of data that is kept restricted versus the amount of lives lost in a particular situation. And could that have been prevented? Could that have been mitigated in a certain way? I don't know. It's as if, and with a lot of the observation providers, that you've got mission being the bottom line, and then actually, hang on a minute, there is a bottom line just below that in terms of what's more important here. And it's a
Yeah.
really interesting, I guess, analogy in that if the world was burning down today, would it take to get to that point for them to think, do you know what? Why don't we release it? We've got no tomorrow. And it's just like, do you know what? We shouldn't get to that point. Of course, yes, we're speaking in incredibly extreme terms, but it, I believe in the butterfly effect, or the domino effect. One thing does lead to another. It's not to say that the world is going to be burning next year, but it's a case of there are things that are happening right before our eyes, and there are
Yes.
things that we could actively do to change this, or to mitigate this, or to prevent this, or to make things
Yes.
safer. But I
Yep.
just feel like we are still deciding not to. And it's a shame.
Hmm.
It's just disappointing. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. I completely agree with your viewpoint there. It's not fun to talk about these things, but you almost have to talk about them in extremes to make a point. And not only that, but there needs to be a sense of urgency here. Eh, Actually, when I was at the we were talking about the EO Summit, Earth Observation Summit, and I had a conversation there with a woman who said, and there was these same conversations happening at EO Summit of the gap between data being available and data actually being usable. Um, and end users were on stage talking about the prices are too high to justify, the licenses are too restrictive. So again, these conversations were happening, and I talked to someone afterwards. She said these same conversations have been happening for 20 years. And so mentally I was like, and that's not a surprise. But mentally I was like, we can't go another 20 years having these conversations. Like, I started my career 20 years ago, and I'll probably end my career in 20 years or so, and I'm not going to retire spending my entire career talking about how licensing is killing so much science, killing applications, killing access. I'm just not going to do it. So, like, I'm putting my foot down that we have to do something about this. And there are awesome ideas out there. There's good ways around this. Like, there needs to be a compromise, and if we can figure out an alternative solution, and I know you talked to Bill Greer and common space, and that's one of those alternate solutions. Let's change the model.
I was going to
Um,
mention Bill. I was going to mention
yeah,
Bill. Yeah,
no, I'm one of their biggest supporters. That um, it the a lot of these traditional companies, legacy Earth observation providers, have been in business for 25 years. They're not going to tomorrow decide, oh, you know what, let's change our entire business model. They have investors, they have customers. So you almost need a fresh approach, and you almost need a new provider to say from the outset, our model is to provide high resolution, high quality, free and open data, and that's our model. And we're going to operate our organization in a different way, and not uh, bank on licensing fees and licensing restrictions as our business model. It needs to happen, and I'm convinced it will happen. It's just a matter of time. Like, are we going to do this in 2025, or are we going to continue to be frustrated and have the same conversations for the next 10 years before
yeah.
we get there? But we will get there.
Yeah, no, I believe in that, and I think once again, it's just all the more reason for development, companies like Development Seed to continue to do what they're doing. It's so bloody important for sure. I seems to be a theme here with quotes, but there's another one that's literally just come to. No, I actually reciting music is not my thing, but reciting quotes, I have a big bank of them in my phone that if I read it, I'll add it to my I call it my quote list, my quote book. It's something like maps are like the stories we tell ourselves. They hide as much as they reveal. And that was by someone called Jerry Broughton. Now,
Wow. Yeah.
let me just repeat that. Maps are like the stories we tell ourselves. They hide as much as they reveal. It's a little bit like something you would hear in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's something like I don't
Yeah.
know, Bootstrap Bill would say to Will Turner in I don't know the third episode there. But anyway, enough about pirates. I am very keen to understand from your end. When did you first realize that a map is just the starting point, and that
Mm,
actually the real value lies in the stories and the insights beneath it? And once again,
yeah.
sandbox answer here. Answer that
Yeah.
in the best way you feel necessary.
Sure. Yeah. And that quote is great. And if you I love reading history and learning about history, and maps shaped how civilizations uh expanded and contracted throughout the world. Like, whoever could draw the authoritative map, there's always a little bit of a bias. And you even see that today. Like, there's these stupid maps, and this is a little bit of a tangent, in the US, that show like political votes. Like, you either voted Republican or Democrat. And if you look at the map, there's a lot of huge counties in the US that are very rural and very unpopulated, which are typically Republican. And then uh, a lot of the Democrat votes come from small cities. So if you look at the map, it looks all red, but that is not telling the true story. It's
True
more of a
story.
50-50 split.
Yeah,
And so there's been really interesting back and forths, and they're using the same data set. They're using this exact same data set. It's election data, and they're just visualizing it in a different way. So that's a whole cool tangent. But to answer your question, it's a great question. I think for me, uh, it really hit me. And my background is more in remote sensing. So I've spent a lot of time doing aerial imagery, satellite imagery, drone imagery. And imagery is often like the first input into a map. So a lot of maps, especially early, were traced off of satellite images. Um, and a good example of that is OpenStreetMap. Now, OpenStreetMap actually started by using like handheld GPS devices to trace a bike route, trace a street, and provide it openly. And it's a big community of contributors. Um, but I got involved with OpenStreetMap about 15 years ago and started going to the State of the Map conferences and hearing the stories behind those maps, and hearing people from all over the world who are the experts in their own community, their own neighborhood, their backyard. And that's really the value of OpenStreetMap is you have, the place you live, you are the expert of the place you live. You know where the sidewalks are, where the parks are, the names of all the places. And so it's that community of people coming together. And I specifically remember um, one moment. It was the tragic earthquake in Haiti, um, where thousands of people were impacted, and a global contingency of search and rescue and response teams flew into Haiti to try to help the situation. Realized, oh, we don't have any good good maps of Haiti, which is a developing nation. It doesn't have the resources to build their own maps like the UK has done for centuries. United States as well. And so a community came together. And at the time, I was working at Digital Globe, and I remember it happened over a weekend. I still remember exactly where I was. It was one of those moments where I was a product manager, and there was desperate calls for satellite imagery. And back then, I think there were only 3 high resolution satellites in orbit. Um, 2 were digital globes, and 1 was from GOI. So we put those to work. We collected imagery. We made it open. We made it available. People downloaded that imagery, and they could see the pre and post impact of this earthquake. And very quickly in the field, they were able to produce maps and deploy teams. Like, here's where we need to go. Here's where we can set up ops. Here's where we can triage. And that is the moment for me when I was like, oh, maps, there is a way, like, a map represents a certain geography at a certain time, and geographies change every single day. And there are people and animals and livelihoods and businesses and forests and agriculture that are impacted by that, and the map can really change the outcome. So that really changed sort of my trajectory from a career standpoint. And I've been involved with sort of disaster response from a mapping slash imagery perspective my ever since then, just because of how profound it was. That's also when humanitarian OpenStreetMap team launched. And so early on, I was a contributor to that, doing those tasks. But that to me was like one of the most poignant examples of how, like, it's way more than just a map. It's a representation of a situation with people. In that case, not all cases, but in that case, people's lives were hanging in the balance. So yeah, that's my little story about discovering what a map actually meant.
Yeah, well, I was recording an episode this morning with the CTO of a company called Vida, and we we're talking about satellite data and kind of the impact it can have in natural disaster events, and kind of not necessarily just response, but also proactively planning in mitigating that. Yeah, okay, fair enough. It might be on behalf of large organizations that have portfolios of assets, and for them to be able to understand their risk. But of course, that data can also be utilized by agencies across the world in maybe less economically developed countries, in developing nations, to be able to plan themselves in the places where actually these things are most prominent. We look at the Philippines. I think it was yesterday that I saw on the news where I think there was a large earthquake that struck. Of course, thoughts go out to all of those affected there. But I can imagine that satellite data, map-based data, can be utilized in emergency response there.
Yes.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. And do you know what? It's been only in the past few years that I've also kind of learned the impact of map-based data. People need to understand I don't come from any form of education. You could call me a high school dropout. Um, I've actually had people ask me before, what's your education in kind of geography or like environmental systems, etc. I'd say zero. I just have, taken on information as time has gone on. So who am I to say about this sort of thing? But yeah, no, I really do appreciate it. Now, I'm going to move on to something else here, and I have a feeling this is something that is somewhat personal to you, because I think I might have seen one or two posts before about your grievance with like ChatGPT and AI generated content. Right? Hey, I'm with you, by the way. I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. I use these models, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever,
Mhm.
Claude, in there's a time and a place, right? There's a time and a place, especially when I'm trying to put a report together, and look, can you generate this and make sure that the data's in this, that, and the error. But do you know what? In terms of commentary and kind of getting a point across, especially if you're, ranting or something on LinkedIn, there's nothing better than trying to get it across in your own weird and wonderful way, rather than, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
infiltrating. So my question is
Yes.
this: in a world where AI is being applied everywhere, where have you deliberately chosen not to use it, and why?
Okay. Great, great question. Much like yourself, I use AI agents every single day. They are a tool in the toolkit. Just, like you said, great for research, great for debugging code. Um, there's definite value, and they are a game changer. I think for business professionals. Um, but it cannot be the final output. Like that's why I like the toolkit imagery or analogy of AI is one tool in the toolkit. So if you think of a builder or a carpenter, he or she uses a hammer, a saw. They have a multitude of tools, but they're building a house, they're building a structure, they're building something. The output is not the tools. Like if you paid a carpenter to do a project and she or he handed you a hammer and said, here it is, you would be very disappointed. And that's to me like when people type a prompt into ChatGPT and have it generate a blog post and then they copy and paste it and put it online. It is so shallow to me. Um, and it's also very obvious, the people who are doing this.
The long dashes.
The structure, the emoji, the M dashes, the just the whole prose and there's actually a Wikipedia page dedicated to the spotting the signs of AI generated content. Um,
Wow. Fair enough.
yeah,
I did not know that.
there is. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Please do.
Um, um, and to me, it's so disingenuous. Um, like it's disingenuous when you're posting that on, and I'll use LinkedIn as an example, but it could be Substack or it could be Blue Sky, Facebook, whatever social media. Like I'm not coming to your profile and your LinkedIn page to read something that ChatGPT told you, which is usually very generic, very beige, very non-controversial to give both sides of the thing. I want you as a human being, I want to hear your take on it.
Yeah. Sure.
Like
Sure.
you use it for research, use it as an input. Like if you're studying a certain topic, use AI all day long to feed you information. But at the end of the day, at least I'm looking for this, and I have heard from a lot of people who are in consensus that we want to keep like um, forums like LinkedIn, the town square, so to speak, the virtual town square. We want humans to be there, not a bunch of AI bots talking to each
Yeah.
other. Uh,
Yeah.
so, like, there's just another funny post yesterday talking about, I used to hate typos and grammatical errors.
Yeah.
Now I actually like them in a weird way because I know it came from a human being.
We've come around full circle. We're kind of longing for that now. Yeah, I do agree. And look, we jest about it, right? But
Yes.
you are right. There is a serious undertone to it. And at what point do we realize actually we need to, before we get ahead of ourselves, before we get carried away, because there will come a time where we do say, I I wish, you know, I wish I saw the world before I knew too much.
Yeah.
Um, and the same applies to AI generated content. I wish I saw the grammatical errors, the
Yeah.
punctuation failures, the that didn't make sense, this didn't read well type
Yes.
content. Um, I guess, relating it to some of the work going on with like development seed, or kind of giving a nod to Earth observation, then maybe even in your role there at development seed, I'm keen to understand if you've deliberately not utilized any form of technology, AI, or innovation to keep things traditional, to keep things simple, and if there was a time where maybe when you did, it produced even arguably better results.
Yeah, that's a great question. It the the interesting thing is at Development Seed, we work on a lot of geospatial AI projects. Um, it's sort of our fastest growing theme of tech that we're building. So a great example is we partnered with Land and Carbon Lab. Land and Carbon Lab is a um, joint project between the Bezos Earth Fund and WRI. And last week, they launched Global Nature Watch, which is a project we've worked on it for the past year. Global Nature Watch is a geospatial AI agent that allows you to ask any question about the Earth's land masses and the changes on the Earth's surface. Um, it's in sort of a private beta right now, but it will be generally available soon. It will be free. The source code is open, um, and it allows anyone in the world and the input can. I think it supports 170 different languages, so it doesn't. A lot of people are like saying, "Oh yeah, you just use plain English to ask it a question." Well, this will you can use plain whatever language is native to you to ask it a question about how the Earth is changing, and it will give you reliable answers
Nice.
with no hallucinations. So the part about being deliberate, and this actually ties into your last question. AI agents hallucinate all the time. Um, and if you as a human can't spot that, that's a problem because if you're just blindly posting outputs from an AI agent, you might be posting hallucinations, and then the crazy thing is other agents are reading those posts and hallucinating even more. So like there's a slippery slope with these agents. And what we built with Global Nature Watch is we kept it sort of enclosed and it's trained on 80 public domain data sets, and that could expand in the future, but we used 80 global data sets, and we're not allowing it to just go wander on the internet and read blog posts and Wikipedia pages. We constrained it to those 80 data sets and brought in a series of quality control and quality assurance steps to make sure it doesn't hallucinate.
Nice.
Um, so we're working on several projects like that. So we are big believers in the power of AI being used as a tool to help a decision maker find an answer.
Answered that, by the way. I'm really, really sorry I like the way in which you've answered that, because it's not a case that you've not deliberately used AI, because ultimately it sounds to me like some kind of like large language model, right? But you've restricted this agent in, as you've mentioned, wandering, going on walkabouts, and thinking, oh, I'm going to go and kind of go on like this kind of Lord of the Rings, the Shire to Mordor type adventure. with Gollum in tow,
Yes. Yes.
but instead you've given it like a literal, and I'm going to say it, pardon the pun, map or path from A to B, and to ensure that it doesn't go outside these confinements. So it's okay. It's not using AI, but it's kind of, once again, it's confining it, it's restricting it to ensure that the information being fed to that user is accurate. It doesn't hallucinate.
Yes. And you're 100% right. And I love the love the Mordor reference. It is using AI, but it's a limited set of scope that the AI can do. So we're sort of tempering the AI to a certain amount of data set. So it definitely uses AI with the LLM, the large language model. It uses foundational models from these geospatial data sets. Um, so it's using AI to interpret what the user's saying, analyze the data sets, and then come back with an answer or some options. And what's really cool, and you'll be able to use it. I mean, I can hook you up with a login right now, but pretty soon anyone in the public will be able to use it. And what's cool is if it doesn't know the answer, or if it's confused, it will actually walk you through why it's struggling, and it will give you prompts to sort of refine your question you're asking. So it might say, let's narrow the time period, or I only have data for this type of attribute. Could we analyze that attribute and get you to the answer you're looking for? And it won't just make something up, which is that point about hallucinations.
Love it. No, that's really cool, and I'm looking forward to having a look at that further. It does remind me a bit of I'm sure you're aware of Earth Genome, and some of the work that they're doing over there. I know that
Yes.
they've got some pretty cool stuff going on. Definitely shout out to Earth Genome if you're watching there.
Yes. Let me plug something real
Yeah,
quick.
go for it, please.
For Earth Genome, they're one of our partners as well,
Hmm.
and um, they have released something called Global Food Twin,
Nice.
which is a really cool application. Again, it's free and open and public, um, where you can look at any part of the Earth, and it will show you um, the amount of food that is both imported and exported to that parcel of land, basically. So it shows you, and it'll show you on a map where where agriculture food calories are produced and where they're exported to all over the world. So you can look at where coffee moves around, where wheat, where potatoes. It's a really interesting project, and shows you like the potential of cloud native technology, because it's all in the browser. You don't need to download anything. It's all in browser. Um, and it shows what's possible with cloud native geospatial, with open data, and with interesting outputs that are accessible by anyone. So yeah, Earth Genome is a great partner of ours as well. We love them.
Nice. Yeah, I love to see that collaboration, that cross collaboration there. It's awesome to see. I guess as we come towards the business end of today's episode, there, um, we're talking a lot about impact here. We're talking a lot about reducing friction between Earth observation providers and the end users. I feel like we've really got that point across, which is fantastic. I think we've achieved that today. I'm just keen to understand how your understanding of impact, and define that as you will, how your understanding of impact has changed over the course of your career, and what it means to someone like yourself who is, in my opinion, on the front line of this work today.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I appreciate it. For me, especially over the last, I've been with Development Seed coming up on 2 years now, and impact. My definition of impact completely changed when I joined Development Seed, because we're trying to make the world a better place, for society, for nature, um, And so everything we work on has that output or outcome or impact. There are a lot of things we decide not to work on because it doesn't, it goes into a closed box, or it allows someone to profit, or something. So the projects we work on have impact, um, meaning it's a it's a positive outcome that's going to help a population of people, or animals, or the planet. So that's been great, because it's not, for us at Development Seed, we're not trying to hit some quarterly revenue numbers so that investors can make an extra 10-cent earning per share. It's not like, that's not the impact we want to have. And for me personally, again, I'm at the point in my career where I want to work on impactful projects, but I've had this desire over the last few years of, like, doing a lot more mentorship, um, and teaching the next generation what I've learned. I'm by no means some wise guru who knows everything, but I have learned a couple lessons along the way. And so I've really, like, for me, impact means passing on some of those lessons to the 20 somethings who are just starting their career. And so I do a lot of mentoring and coaching, and I, I do it because I like to do it. I've also done some guest lecturing at universities, which I love doing, um, to be able to tell those stories and pass something on. So to me, like, that's become one of the more important things. I can see that growing in the future, but yeah, just to have some sort of legacy. And because I'm sure you're the same way as Sam. Like, so many people helped me when I was a young person, gave me advice that I still remember to this day. So I want to be able to do the same thing.
Absolutely. No, I love that answer. I've had a few things happen in my life more recently, actually. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it that the things that have happened have been so drastic and so life changing on my end that it's made you think, it's made you question what is the meaning of life,
Wow.
and it's made you think, like, is what I'm doing, number one, what I want to do, but number two, meaningful for those people tomorrow. And I'm not talking necessarily about my carbon footprint. I'm not necessarily talking about being the most sustainable person on the planet. I'm not necessarily talking about being the kindest person that someone knows, but it's more, what mark am I leaving? And I know that this isn't really much to do with Earth observation, and I know that people listening right now are probably thinking, "We want more satellite data. Come on, talk about that." But it's just a bit like, come on, we're humans here, right? Um, and I really like that, and I think for me, I don't feel like I'm in a position yet to mentor and to kind of pass on, what I have learned. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm kind of putting myself down there. Maybe I'm in a position to speak to people who are sort of up and coming into the staffing industry. But when I feel like I am ready, 100%, I will be passing that torch on, and very proudly so. Especially with the fact that I've already mentioned, I come from being a high school dropout, no education at all. I think we have something in the UK called GCSEs. I don't even think they're called that anymore. I probably attained about 5 or 6 of those. I tried to do college. I tried to do university. Without doing college, I don't think I was ever going to get to university anyway. And I think I've done a pretty bloody good job, to be honest, with all things
Absolutely.
considered. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, do you know
I,
what? I really respect that answer you've given there.
Cool. And don't sell yourself short, Sam. You are, I know so many people follow your content, um, and listen to your advice. Like, you are very insightful, and you are probably not deliberately mentoring people, but you are. You'd be surprised how many sort of silent followers and listeners you have. And I say that from experience. Like, had so many random people come up to me who I've never interacted with. They've never commented on a post or liked a post, but they say, oh, I love what you're saying, keep on doing it. I can guarantee you probably have 10 times more than I do.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, and formal education, like, who cares? I know it's
I know, right?
important, and
Yeah.
I respect people who have put in the time, put in the years, but you can learn just as much from being out in the field, talking to people, um, having a strong career, and surrounding yourself. Like, there's one point when I was in my 20s and I was thinking about doing an MBA, and I was working for a startup, and the CEO was brilliant, no college education, but he knew how to build a business, and he knew how to sell and drive value. And someone said, well, why would you go do an MBA? Just go talk to your boss, go talk to the founder. He's going to give you better insights and advice, and he'll educate you more than you would ever get at a college. And again, that's stuck with me. So don't sell yourself short, Sam.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I completely agree. I think if we're talking quotes and to kind of sign off this fantastic recording, I'd say, if anything, leave the world in a better place than you found it.
Yeah, love
Leave the
that.
world in a better place than you found it. Well, look, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today's episode. Thank you so much for sparing the time. I know that you're incredibly busy following your week in New York there. And I know that we've been sort of back and forth in rescheduling this, and you've been busy, I've been busy, but I'm so glad that we've been able to finally get this one recorded. So yeah, honestly, means the absolute world. Everyone who has been watching, thank you for getting to this point. It's been much appreciated. That is Kevin Bullock, Head of Partnerships at Development Seed, there on today's episode of Earth Observed. And until next time, all I can say to my audience is take care and enjoy your day. Hello, and thank you for watching today's episode of Earth Observed, powered by DeepRec.ai. If you're interested in joining me for an episode of your own to discuss a topic of your choice, do get in contact with me. And of course, if you are looking to scale your team within geospatial, Earth data, or atmospheric AI, please do get in contact. I'd love to understand how I can support you. Until next time, have a great day.